back to the CayVin Universe. We got a pretty good one today. Today we got a 20-year porn producer and director for sites like Brazzers, Digital Playground, and Pornhub. Also, you can check out his book Filthy. Vic Lagina. Vic, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Doing good, doing
I,
good.
I I love it. Actually, I really enjoy when people struggle over the name. It gives me some sick joy, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, like it's one of those things, especially with podcasting and having guests, first time guests like yourself. It's like, you don't want to mess it up, but then the more you think about, I don't want to mess it up, you end up messing it up.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
good. That's good.
Yeah, but
But
yeah. So, where, how's your day going? It seems like you have good, sunny day where you're at, right?
Yeah, I'm in Vegas and it's unseasonably warm right now, but we've had the past couple of days where I'm like fighting the battle of like not like willpower on the air conditioning because it's only March. We shouldn't be in air conditioning yet.
yep.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, it's supposed to drop down in next week, so I'm good. But yeah, got the tank top rocking.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah. I see you're already in that tank top weather.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's still in Texas. It's still in that transition where he doesn't know if it's cold or if it's hot. Like
Yeah,
some days
Yep.
it's
literally.
cold, some days it's hot, then it's cold in the morning, hot, and
Mm,
all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
yep.
but to get us started, I want to, we like to go back in the origin story of like, how your basically career and your interesting path came to be. Now I know your book, you touch on that as well. How you basically got started in the industry. But yeah, kind of from your version, for us, like how would you say your origin story really started?
So when did I succumb to the dark side and become a super porn villain? Uh,
Exactly.
yeah, well, my background is in production. I have 6 years of higher education on TV and film production, which is 6 years too many. And I was working in Florida after I got my degree, and I was working in corporate and commercial. And while it was, paying the bills, it wasn't very fulfilling. And growing up, I loved TV, I loved movies. And around the turn of the millennium, I met a girl. We had taken a bunch of models down to Jamaica for a corporate video down there, and she had this idea of let's go to LA. I'm moving there, and I thought it was a great idea. Long story short, it was one of your typical crash and burn Hollywood stories
Mm,
where you get yourself into a lot of debt. And I'm better now, but I was pretty poor at choosing a partner
mm,
back then. And when she decided to stop working, the debt just kind of ballooned a little bit, and I answered an ad on adultstaffing.com where a kid was, I say kid, but he was probably like 18 or 19-year-old kid who wanted to direct his first porn movie. And he was paying a hefty $500. So I bullshitted him and I told him, yeah, I've worked in porn before. I'll help you out. And that started a whole chain reaction of events that led to a blossoming career in the world of pornography.
wow. Yeah, it's like you never know where your path would lead you.
Yeah.
That's definitely interesting. And now, I don't know what year was this that you started.
It was April of 2002, and my first day was on a set that I just explained with the kid. We had four shoots that day, one of which the last scene of the day was with Ron Jeremy.
Oh
That
wow.
was my first day of porn ever.
Interesting.
But the
Yeah.
day was a little seedy, I will say. Not so much the fact I was shooting sex, but when the wafting of crack in the air. And I'm not talking butt crack. I'm talking
Right.
the drug crack.
Right. I'm sure
It
both at
was
one
just,
point. Yeah.
yeah. I was just like, this is kind of gross, and it wasn't the way I wanted to
Ooh,
really start it. So,
Hmm.
I
yeah.
guess it was that day where I decided, I'm gonna if I do continue with this, I'm gonna legitimize it as much as I can. And when I have my shoots going on, to keep the crackheads away from those shoots.
Nice.
And so I guess it was probably good it started that way because it was to show you what not to do and how to learn from mistakes. But eventually I left LA with the bad girlfriend, went back to South Florida because the debt was just insurmountable. And the plan was to keep working and get myself out of debt. But in corporate worlds, you get, especially as an independent contractor, you work a day, you get paid for that day, maybe 2, 3 months down the road. Whereas the porn snowball, which had already started, that paid you money before you even shot
Mhm.
one frame of video.
Hmm.
So I guess that would be the decision to fully be
Right.
seduced by the dark
Yeah.
side,
Yeah.
and that's when I became a, full-fledged, full-time pornographer.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
I I was curious working on those types of sets. Like, is there anything like crazy that you've ever experienced, or like something like super nasty? I don't know.
Well, yeah, if you read the book, there's plenty of nasty stories.
Mhm.
So, what I like to do with the book, like I tried not to make it a glamorous take on porn. Not that
Right.
I think that people really think porn is glamorous. I'm sure they believe it's got the seedy elements to it. But for me, I like the bizarre, the awkward, the train wreck kind of feel. So, yeah, when you have, anal scenes go wrong, or, when she's on her period, what do you do? Or
Right.
is it squirt or is it pee?
Yeah,
You know, you
that's a
you,
big
you
one.
get to
Yeah.
all of these things and you get really accustomed, I guess, to a lot of people's bodily functions.
Mm.
And that can be a part of a normal day.
Yeah.
So I'd say, the majority of it was kind of filthy, which is why I, named the book
Of
that.
course.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting when I got in, I guess you would say, when the internet was in its infancy, it was starting to grow.
Right.
And once the girlfriend left me and I made a case to get myself out of debt, that was around the time I met the guys who would become brazzers.
Mm.
And they really liked what I did for them work wise, and I didn't mess with their money. So they told me if I were to move more towards the West Coast to tap into the LA performers, they would keep me very busy. And they weren't lying because when I relocated to Vegas in '06, every month was busy until COVID hit. And that was pretty
Hmm.
much when the career ended.
Dang.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
bet with like industries like that, with when COVID hit, they were like destroyed because it's like you're supposed to stay away from each other, and the point is to be
Well, yeah, that would honestly, I would classify that like with athletes, like how
Hmm.
basically COVID.
Well, you'd be curious to know that a lot of performers, actually, it's not shouldn't be that surprising. There were some that were definitely afraid of COVID,
Mhm.
but there are some who are like, shit, I get myself exposed to all sorts of things every day.
True.
Gosh, this pesky little virus, I'm not really concerned about it.
Right.
Right.
So it wasn't really the virus itself. It was more of how the business changed
Mm.
during the years of the pandemic and how the transfer of wealth went more from the companies to the creators because they had their own
Oh, yes.
platforms like OnlyFans and everything. And a guy
Hmm.
like me who had all this production experience and a studio and a crew and a lot of overhead, it just became unnecessary
Yeah.
and too much money for a business that a studio business that was losing money
Right.
because of the transfer of wealth.
Hmm.
Yeah, and basically seen it transfer twice because I mean, like 2002 when you said you were starting, that's kind of like was the phase when it was phasing out from like DVDs and adults, video stores into the internet, and then
Right.
now you have it from professional porn to everyone doing it themselves with OnlyFans. Like, how do you feel about that?
Well, I think the reality is that the money is not there on the studio side anymore, even though there are some contract performers. I mean, they're the creme of the creme, I guess you would call them, that are actually, they get contracts with the studios, but I don't know. I mean, I'm more of if you built your brand up by getting yourself dirty in the porn trenches, well, then capitalize on your brand, especially if you're the one having sex, because it is your body on the front line, and you are the one who has to deal with the social media and the bullying and the discrimination. So
Hmm.
I was all for it, even though I was out of a job. Fortunately, I was over the job by that point, and I really did not like who I was working for and with a lot. So I guess you could say that everything worked out as it was supposed to. And because of the moves I made, I was able to land the flaming Airbus safely instead of it crashing into the mountain, which is how a lot of porn stories may end.
Yeah, crashing and burning. And you touched on it before, or a little while ago, but the drug use in
Mhm.
the porn industry, has that
Yep.
always been rampant, or is that something that was maybe big back then but you don't see it much now? Like,
I don't want to talk in absolutes. I could talk about myself and I could talk about what I saw with some people. But, there are coping mechanisms for a lot of the darkness within the industry. Um, I was trying to figure out why I was doing it. And I think at first it was really a matter of we were so busy. We were outputting about 25 shoots a month and all of these live shows, and we were very busy. So, even though I was always smoking weed and, having drinks and, the occasional acid trip or whatever, uh, the hardest I ever went was cocaine.
mm,
And to me, that was more of a like a performance enhancing drug.
right.
Whereas if you're so tired and exhausted and you've done a few shoots today and you got three tomorrow, well, just line up a fat caterpillar and snort it up and you're ready to go that morning to shoot the day. I mean, I hate talking like that obvious about it, but it was true. But there were those who were on Xanax, there were those who were on opioids,
Right.
there were those who drank. There were those who needed to drink and snuck drinks in order to do their scenes. Um, but I think, the reality of it was, and I came to the understanding that a reason why I was doing a lot of it was because of that darkness that I mentioned. And it really rang true when I was writing the book. And more importantly, when I was writing the obituaries or the rest in porn, the in memoriams of 8 or 9 people in the book that I knew personally
Wow.
that didn't make it out. Now, some of them were more like they weren't because of drugs. They were more from sicknesses or drunk driving or something along those lines.
Mm,
But most of them were either overdoses or suicides.
oof.
And it became like it really hit home when I was writing and researching their obituaries to fully understand the pain that a lot of these girls were in. And that's when I realized, okay, so you were also medicating to kind of numb yourself because you had a job to do.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it was awakening to understand why I did it. But the good news is, when you spend time away from it, you don't need it anymore. You don't need to do the drugs anymore. And another reason why I'm grateful that everything ended during the pandemic was because I couldn't sustain that. That is not an unsustainable path where you're doing cocaine. Even though I had tapered off, it was still hanging around there. And nowadays you get a bad bag, you're gone. The fentanyl will kill you.
Yeah.
So I look at it like this, as much as it was hard to watch all that money go away, um, when I was waking up happy and I was waking up alive,
Yeah.
waking up, period, I was like, it's okay. It's okay. Say goodbye, make your peace with it,
Yeah.
and start rewiring your brain for life after porn. And that's where I've been for the last 5 years or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And or you have something?
I was just gonna switch to like if you like some of the biggest names that you've worked with. I'm curious, like, or who was your favorite?
I always say my favorite was the one who made their flight from LA in the morning and showed up with a smile on their face and ready to have a good day and ready to be professional. I
Right.
know it sounds so weird, but it was so rare. And you knew which ones were going to show up like that. And you knew which days you're going to have a
Yeah.
good day.
Right.
But for every one of those, you seem to have 5 shitheads that you have to just, worry about to make sure and keep them on the path so you can get the job done. If you need me to mention a name, I would tell you Phoenix Marie would be at the top of that list all the time because I knew if she showed up, we would have a good day, And there was a bunch of others. A lot of them are under contract now
Ugh.
with Brazzers, and I'm not really want to be an advocate of that brand or that company anymore.
Oh, okay.
But for if they were put under contract, especially the ones now, is because they were professional, like the Angela Whites, the Alexis
Right.
Foxes, um, Luna Stars. I mean, they're all pros.
Right.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a good day, and they're gonna rock out a great scene. So
Right.
those are the ones I really appreciated along the way.
Yeah, because
Nice.
as much as the stigma or what people want to think about porn, it is a profession. So
Yep.
you got to be professional, and like you're saying, sometimes you deal with shitheads. And but is there a lot more of that than you would think? Like just I don't know. dudes, or it could be either or, but just they think that just because they're in porn or they're shooting, they can kind of treat it like whatever they want to treat it as.
I mean, it seemed like the bigger the train wreck, the bigger the star
Mm.
for whatever reason. I talk about Shyla Stiles in my book. She's no longer with us, but she was one of them, where especially in like the prime Brazzers years from like 2006 to around 2010, 2011, where I would make a joke that a girl like Shyla would just she could wear a potato sack and the scene would be popular. Like they had Teflon, but you would have those, and you're like, it's almost like they knew. I guess it would be the same thing in Hollywood. If you're a Hollywood star that's making hundreds of millions of dollars for a studio, well, it kind of gives them justification to be divas, brats, or whatever. And it's no different in porn at all. Um, but like, the dudes, I would tell you, I would hire like the same 10 guys usually because they treated their bodies well, and you knew that they were going to deliver a good scene, especially under difficult circumstances, which production is. So you have a lot of pros, but it seemed like on the female side, you would have more that were kind of more problems
Uh,
than otherwise.
right. Oh, jeez. And then
Yeah.
just talking about everything you're talking about, and like the years you've been into it. I mean, like you said, you're a 20-year veteran. Um, you already touched on it, but that has to deal with your mental health, with performers' mental health. Can you kind of speak onto that? Like you already kind of spoke on other people's mental health problems and yourselves, but like, yeah, kind of, of course, psychedelics help, I would say, but
Yep.
other drugs maybe not, but yeah, just
Well, I guess the thing is, like every performer, even now, they should have an escape to get away from it. And I tell them, I'm like, look, if you need to take a break, take a break. It's okay to, even though you want to make the money and you don't want the money to escape you, and that will keep you working as it did for me. It's good to have an escape, and that was particularly important for me. I'd say the last 5 years, where for me, what I would do is if porn was getting to be too much, I would always schedule a music festival somewhere down the road where I would go hang out with cool people, do the good drugs, and really do the mushrooms, the acid, and reset the brain in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And with the good energy of music, I would always return much happier, much lighter, and able to do it for another couple months until I had to repeat the process.
right.
So, but for anyone, it's, you got to have your core set of friends who aren't in the business. Um, I didn't make a lot of friends in the business because I didn't really have a lot in common with a lot of people in the industry. And even when I would spend personal time with some, especially like of the female sort, you're there for a reason. But afterwards, when you post ejaculate, you're like, well, what do we talk about? Like, what do we have in
Yeah.
common?
Right.
Nothing. And so that was always weird and awkward for me. So, but yeah, I found my people elsewhere. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Because I would think the industry, like, yeah, you would have a melting pot of all different types of people and personalities. But then when you're talking about like the divas and stuff, that totally makes sense too.
Hmm.
Um, and then,
Yeah, and I think too, there's a lot of ego. For
uh,
whatever reason, I don't know. I want to say this to some of them. I'm like I think with some of these words, I'm like, well, you do realize you're a dick sucker. I hate saying it like that, but the truth is, it's like you're not sending people to Mars or you're not curing cancer. Like,
right,
Right.
where is this ego coming from?
yeah,
Because like when it's all over, all you're gonna have is yourself and your thoughts, and hopefully some people around you. So I try to, I just have always been dumbfounded
mhm,
by those who took themselves very seriously
Right.
and didn't stay grounded
right,
while in porn.
right.
I guess it's kind of the way it might happen in Hollywood too. Very
Right.
similar between Hollywood music and porn. It's a lot of the same.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that diva mentality. Sounds like a lot of them need to go on a psychedelic trip. That'll help ground you.
Yeah.
Well, it was actually kind of funny because, like, I think over time, when people started to see me, like, I had short hair before, and then eventually I just went full on hippie,
Yeah.
right? And people just kind of were like, maybe he's onto something. They're like, hey, where do I get some acid or where do I get mushrooms? And I'm like, I might know a guy, for you, but I would almost encourage it because it seemed like some were in some dark places, and they would ask me like, "What do you think?" And I go, "Listen, just don't go overboard, but dip your toe in the water, see if it helps." And a lot of people thanked me for it because it seemed to keep them grounded and balanced and open their eyes to other possibilities of what to do with themselves, or maybe even plan or have a plan for after porn, because some of them would live, cock to mouth. And so, you have to bank, you have to be sensible, you have to
Right.
have a good financial advisor and accountant, and save your money and invest it. So,
Yeah.
I try to, give my Yoda wisdom whenever I could. But, sometimes you would see like the eyes glaze over while you're trying to give like good life advice, and you're like,
Oh
never
gosh.
mind.
Oh
Talking
man.
to a brick wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you have a I was just
No, go ahead.
gonna mention so 2020 when that kind of timeline kind of ended for you. So what are you working on post? Is that when you started writing your book?
So I started writing the book in 2015 because I felt at that point I had been in the business for about 13 years, and I was just about ready to end another one of my dysfunctional relationships, although that one, compared to the predecessors, was much lighter. So, and a lot of that reason was to get all of the info out of my head while it was still fresh. And so it started then, but sometimes in porn we had to shut down. If someone had a test for HIV and they had to do more testing for other people, we would not be shooting. So I'd be like, all right, let's go catch up on the book again.
Oh.
And then when it was all over and the porn music ended, and I had sold my studio and I was just, able to just live a pretty carefree life. Then it really became real on, do I want to release this journal, which is what it was, into a published book?
Oh.
And I went for it. I took a big swing and went for it.
Yeah.
So I'd say
Nice.
the entire process from start to finish, from the time I started writing to the time it was published, 8.5 years.
Oh
And it
wow.
was heavy, heavy refinement because I didn't want to release something of subpar quality. It had to be good. It had to be impactful. It had to jar some people to their core. That to me is what good art is, and that's what I wanted to deliver.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's good. From the story to the actual cover art. I love it. And where can people find that?
So it's on Amazon. If you are a fan of print books, I made sure that this is a book you would want to have on your bookshelf. It
Yeah.
it looks cool. There's a lot of hidden subliminal messages in the front and back cover,
Mm-hmm.
and the layout's good. And
Nice.
spent a lot of time, especially with legal, because I do speak very honestly about all of that. Throw some people under the bus,
Hmm.
but that is on Amazon. The audiobook, if you don't like to read or don't have time to read, which I understand, I narrated the audiobook.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
That's always
And
great.
I
perfect.
spent a lot
Yeah.
Yeah.
of time. I spent a lot of time on that one because I
Nice.
never listened to an audiobook. I was always a reader.
Right.
But I was like, well, I don't want to be influenced by anyone's audiobook. So I made mine a very, very unique experience, which has actual sound clips of what I'm talking about in
Oh
there when I
wow.
was doing my research.
That's cool.
Wow.
Um, and the book is a little, it's, some people have described it a bit of like it's an acid trip of some kind. And I'm like, you're not wrong there because my alter ego is also a big part of the narrative.
Mm.
So he's chiming in, and that's when it gets a little more weirder. So if you want
Wow.
a fun, funny, sometimes sad audiobook that will engage you, and you drive a lot or you travel, that's on Spotify and Apple
Wow.
Books. So I would say spin that one and have a go at it.
Yeah.
It'll be fun for you.
I would totally want to hear it.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
definitely sounds cool. Yeah, just that alone like makes you want to at least check it out. So yeah,
Yeah.
everyone please check that out because yeah, that's that's a really cool concept.
Yeah.
And then the rest of your social medias, if you have any, where can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram and I'm on X at Vic Lagina.
Okay.
I would also say go to my website, viclagina.com. So what I did was I had two studios under my supervision the entire time I was in porn. And as a creative guy, all I shot basically a movie every day. It was a short movie every day, but it always ended in a facial, right? And I thought for a creative dude like me to have that much at my fingertips, that creativity, it would be really a shame if I didn't shoot something creative in there. So that's what I did right before I sold the studio. And while I was waiting on this editor to deliver a cut, that was when I decided to really go full speed on the book. But what I wound up doing was using the footage from that project as a trailer for the book. And that is on my website at viclagina.com. So I tell people to check that out because if you really want to get an idea of like the tone and what this book is, the trailer really nails it. And
Right.
I'm pretty proud of that. So go to viclagina.com and you'll see porn star boobies if that will motivate you further.
Wow, and I might be naive to it, but has anyone ever done a trailer for a book? That sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
it's actually a common thing. And the thing
Oh,
that's
okay.
interesting is a dude that I went to film school with, like back in University of Miami. I fell off from him like a while ago, but
Mm,
he wound up being one of the editors on my book. And he was a guy who does trailers for books.
wow.
So, yeah, I mean, little things just kind of happen in this whole process where this makes the most sense.
Right.
And, the thing was, I had time and I had money to do this right. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm happy with it. And the truth is, people who have read it, it's been out for a little while now, and it's creating a life of its own. I mean, people have found it, they really enjoy it. Assuming they want to know about the porn industry, and some it's a bit too much. I get it, but others are like, dude, you nailed it, man, with this really odd, quirky cult classic kind of book. So I'm pretty happy with how it is, and now it's the fun part. I've just been marketing it and
Yeah.
telling people and spreading the gospel of filthy.
Yeah. I love
Nice.
that,
Love
spreading
it.
the gospel of filthy.
Yes.
Um, Before we go, do you want to touch on anything?
I don't think
Yeah,
so.
you
Yeah, we hit a lot of good
a
points.
lot of good points, and this conversation has flown by. Is there anything you wanted to touch on or message you wanted to get across before we let you go?
No, no, I mean, like I always enjoy, informing people about things in the industry. So if you have any particular questions about the industry or really what like about the nuts and bolts of it, I'm happy to tell you, because there is a lot to it.
Yeah.
Within my book, even though my narrative and my story was a bit of a shit show, especially when it came to relationships, I didn't think that was enough to sustain a narrative. So I pretty much left, a lot of lessons in the book, the 9 lessons of Vic Lagina's School of Porn, where you really like know if you're, and I say this to people, if you're thinking about getting into porn as a performer or as a producer, read my book because it kind of teaches as a master class of how to be an effective porn producer and how to have good etiquette and how to not be a scumbag and how to do this in a professional way
Yeah.
because it's very important. Just because we're pornographers doesn't make us savages. We can
Exactly.
do this in a very professional manner. So
Hmm.
that's what I did, and the story is a balance of trying to stay in the light and not succumb to the darkness. And that's a big central theme in it. And yeah, I think anyone who would be really interested, there's a lot of performers who wrote books, but I kind of look at them as vanity projects that don't reveal too much
Mm,
because I think a lot of people are afraid of
right.
their own humanity
Mm,
and revealing that. I was fearless with this. I just said,
nice.
you know what? I understand my faults as a human and I've reconciled them and I've reflected and I've learned those lessons. And, I just try to tell people, read it for that alone. And I guess there's probably one other thing. Uh, if you can, don't be a patron of Pornhub. Support your local creator
Nice.
because I'll tell you, the company I started with was not the company I finished with,
Mm,
and I don't really think very highly of what they are now. and what they've done as a company. So I would say it's better to support a creator rather than get your free porn on a tube site.
Right.
Just my opinion, my PSA, if you will.
Yeah, see, and maybe that's why. I mean, you can't even get Pornhub here in Texas. It's one of those that are banned unless you have a VPN. But there's still other
Well,
ones that are free out there.
yeah. Well, the truth is, it's not bans. This is the truth. Pornhub has just decided to block access there because they don't want to comply with the laws. And you have to ask yourself, well, why is that?
Yeesh.
Why don't they want to comply with something that sounds good, like age verification?
Yeah.
But that is the nefarious dealings that have been Pornhub over the last several years, where their reckoning has been coming, and
Yeah,
it is very
exactly.
much deserved. Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, like coming from a dude's perspective, I've never liked that side. It always seemed like they were kind of, I've said this before on the podcast. It's always seemed like they were kind of trying to be a little too trendy and like TikTok-y. It's almost like, who are you trying to gear this towards? Almost is kind of sketchy at times. So yeah, personally, I never
Yeah.
liked it, but like you said, they've been kind of it's been
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah, and the whole industry has changed so much, like tastes change so
Yeah.
much over time. But there was a lot of ick factor in a lot of it. The
Yeah.
whole um, stepbrother, stepsister, stepmother, stepfather, and
Oh,
all that.
yes.
You have to kind of look. I'm not gonna sit here and be like all highfalutin and be like, and shaking my finger, but you have to at least examine the underlying meaning of what they're trying to do
Yeah.
there. And I'm not going to say I didn't shoot any of it, but the kid that we shot, I say kid, but he was like a 25-year-old that looked like he was maybe 16, but he had like an Adam's apple and stubble, and he was very small in stature. So there was a comedic element to it.
Yeah.
But, there was a lot of MILF performers that were like, I'm not doing this anymore
Yeah.
because it's kind of icky. And in a lot of ways, I applaud them for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's I don't even want to get into
Yeah.
that area.
Definitely
but
don't want to be
yeah.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
man, this has been such a great interview, such a great conversation. Actually, I don't really like to
Yes.
call them interviews. It's been a great
Right.
conversation.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you so much for joining. You're more than welcome back anytime you want. Yeah, we definitely need to check out your book and maybe have you back after we finish it. Kind of dive into that.
Dive into it. Yes,
That-
that's a good
that's
idea.
what I was going to say. I would say give the audiobook a spin and then revisit. I've done those too, where had initial interview, did exactly this, and then they were like, dude, I just spun it and I need you back on. I'm like, I'm all here for it. So
Perfect.
let's do it.
Perfect. All right, man. Well, yeah, thank you again so much, and you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.